Aviation officials say 2 people were injured when an explosion tore a hole in a jetliner over Somalia Tuesday. The pilot made an emergency landing, and part of it was captured on cell phone video. There is no definitive word on what caused the explosion. Margaret Brennan has more details.
Cell phone video shot on the plane while still in flight shows oxygen masks blowing in the wind near the hole in the Airbus 321. Some passengers towards the back of the plane can be seen wearing their own oxygen masks. Once on the ground, the damage to the plane was clearly visible, with pieces of the fuselage curled out from the body of the plane. All 74 passengers and crew were evacuated. Aviation officials say 2 people were injured. The Somali-owned airline was on its way from Mogadishu to Djibouti when just minutes after takeoff, the rupture ripped a hole in the fuselage. Somali diplomat Awale Kulane was on the flight and said on Facebook that he heard a loud noise and couldn't see anything but smoke for a few seconds. After the smoke cleared, he realized quite a chunk of the plane was missing.
U.S. intelligence officials are aware of reports that there may have been an explosion, but it's unclear if that's from a structural failure or a bomb. Contessa, the al-Qaeda-linked terror group al-Shabaab does control part of the country, and ISIS is expanding its footprint.
CBS News aviation and transportation safety analyst Mark Rosenker is with me on the phone now. Mark, from the video and especially from the picture of the exterior of that plane, do you have any sense of what happened?
It is still very early in this investigation, Contessa, but obviously when you have the aircraft on the ground, you have all of the evidence that would be necessary to understand exactly what happened. They'll be looking at the cockpit voice recorder. They'll be doing the analysis. It is very easy to see when you listen to the cockpit voice recorder and look at the graphic aspect of it, whether it was a structural decompression or an explosion.
Can you describe what you mean by a structural decompression?
Well, you might have a pressurization failure where there's fatigue or a manufacturing flaw. I think that is a remote cause, but certainly something that has to be looked at. They'll be looking at the actual skin of this airplane and doing swabs to see if there's any explosive material which they'll be able to obtain from that. And if that's the case, it'd be very clear that it was an explosive device.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the potential this explosion had for doing more damage. What was your reaction when you saw the fact that the pilot was able to make an emergency landing and come back safely with just 2 injuries?
According to the report, this airplane was taking off and had only really been in the air for 5 minutes or so, which means it was still in, although a critical phase of flight, it was on its way up to altitude. When this explosion occurred, he was able to maintain control given the fact that apparently nothing as it related to any of the control connections were in any way, shape, or form affected. He was able to immediately bring the airplane down, and in some of the video you see the actual oxygen masks being deployed coming down so that the passengers put them on, and they were able to quickly get onto the ground. There are reports also that not only was there an explosion, but there was a fire. If you take a look at some of the video, you're able to actually see some char marks along the exterior portion of the fuselage.
Yeah, we're showing the picture right now, and you see them on the left-hand side of the gaping hole there in the plane. Of course, security officials are on alert, Mark, because of the explosion that happened over Egypt earlier that ISIS supporters were taking credit for. We heard Margaret mention al-Shabaab operating in this region, ISIS expanding its footprint. What role will terrorism and its potential play in the investigation?
Absolutely an important aspect of what potentially happened here. It wouldn't surprise me that the folks that manufacture Airbus would be sending over some of their investigators, along with the French version of the NTSB called the BEA, to really work with the local Somali officials to find out exactly what really happened to this airplane and do the analysis properly that they could tell what type of explosive material it was, if in fact it was that.
Mark, great to talk to you. Thank you for sharing your perspective and insight.
You bet.